I'm pretty sure all water on Earth has been dinosaur pee. It's like mathematically almost impossible that it wouldn't have been pee at some point. If you're at a point where you could interface a brain with a computer or even upload it, I would put my brain into a spaceship. I would reprogram myself so that I would reach sexual completion upon making scientific discoveries. There's no argument there. Yes, I am that motherfucker who stole his clothes, because Michael is a tiny little humanzee. He's a little gremlin hybrid between a person and a chimp. People hated that last one. Everyone's got to take an L now and then, so I think I'm fine with that.
What were the criticisms? Why did they hate this video?
I think people want a lot of things that are ultimately really bad for them and for everyone around them. And so you actually cater to everything that anyone wants, you probably end up in a really bad, messed up place.
Hey, welcome to the Create Unknown, the home of Make Something Mean Something. I am Kevin Lieber. It is Wednesday night, TCU night. That is where we live and where we come live to all of our patrons here on the Discord and in the episode chat. And what's very exciting is that today we have finalized the payment for our first ever batch of TCU t-shirts that are a long time coming, but we were very particular about how they were going to come out, the garment, the type of ink, the hang tags, the everything, the folding and the polybagging and the blah, 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 all of it. We were very particular about so that when you get it, you are happy with the product that you receive. With me, as always, is the t-shirt partner in crime, Matthew Tabor.
Yeah, and we'll have a link so that you can check those out. As we said last week, they're going to our guests. They're going to the baby gang and the infantry, and then we've got a handful that'll be for sale in addition. So if you want them, you're going to have to go quick. Link will be in the top of the description here. You can check those out. Also, for patrons, the current patrons, the patrons to be, we now have an ad-free feed for this podcast that is exclusive to patrons. So Studio 71 did a great job setting that up for us. There's no reason that patrons should listen to commercials. So we'll put the ad-free feed in the Patreon, and you can use that if you prefer. And really just good news, Kevin, all around the YouTube sphere. Mini Kudos got his 100,000 subscriber button. That's good. Congratulations to him. James Marriott has some music coming out very soon. He just announced that. We'll have some details when that drops. Crypt Daddy, when the world opens up properly again, it looks like Crypt Daddy may be doing a little stand-up in the fall. So that's something we will give details on as these dates near. But yeah, life is good.
Yeah, and Justin Wang is going back out on tour with his band Jinx. I don't know if you saw that,
that's
but
right.
He announced some tour dates. So yeah, the world is opening up
Many
again.
Dates,
and
it's like 30, 40 dates. Yeah.
It's a real tour. Yeah, it's great. It's very exciting. So definitely check that out because it's there's a high probability that Wang will be in your area and you need to go to the Wang if he's coming to you. That's just how it works.
That's right. If you're in the continental United States, your city is going to get wanged hard in 2021. And it's absolutely worth going to see the show. But we have a non-musical guest tonight. There is a class of YouTube genius so terrifyingly inventive that they have the capacity to either save or destroy humanity. It depends on the day, honestly. We could call that genius Reevesian, we could call it Osmanian, or we could call it Panian. Allen Pan rose to prominence on the Science Channel's Mythbusters The Search and was objectively the best candidate to replace Adam and Jamie. His elimination just before the final was met with such public consternation that a Change.org petition exists to bring justice to Allen Pan's dismissal. One mother lamented on Facebook that We won't watch it anymore now that Alan is gone. My 12-year-old son cried when Alan left. It's been 5 years. That boy is now 17, and we have no evidence at all that his sobbing has ceased. But when the universe closes a door, it tends to open up a window. So Alan constructed a jetpack out of empty milk jugs, fermented mayonnaise, and Flex Seal, flew out and landed on your 3-monitor Minecraft battle station. That invention is fake, but the real ones showcased on his YouTube channel are equally fantastic. Like his very first video, a wrist device that replicates Naruto's Rasengan attack, which was a birthday present he made for his 13-year-old brother. Very normal. Alan has constructed Thor's hammer, made a functional Star Wars lightsaber, a flying Captain Marvel shield, punch-activated flamethrowers, and most recently, an exoskeleton powerful enough to wield giant real-life anime swords. He has also tried his hand at improving public health with a CO2 cartridge-powered gun that shot and affixed a mask on the faces of those who refused to wear one, and of course, it worked on the first try. We've actually witnessed the speed and imagination of Alan's electrical engineering abilities. He built Kevin an electrified vintage Snakes and Ladders board hooked up to an exploding surprise, which Alan designed, constructed, and shipped in about 48 hours. That is Allen Pan. His channel name, Sufficiently Advanced, harkens back to the third of sci-fi writer Arthur C. Clarke's 3 laws. Any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. So, Alan, if money was no object, what is the coolest, most magic-like thing you would build?
First of all, that is the absolute best biography I've ever heard from myself. I could not have written that. That is amazing. You just made me feel like I'm a pretty cool dude.
Well, we write fiction here, but we can pretend that it's real.
You know what? I'll take it. So if we're saying like money's no object, like I have whatever resources, I have like anything. What would I make? What would I build with that?
Yeah,
that is that's a tough one. Because it's almost like a lot of engineering, I think, comes from constraints. Right. So like a lot of the ideas and a lot of the things that you do when you're like building something actually comes from like being limited in like budget or by physics or by, what you have handy. And it's almost like that almost is kind of like a source of sort of inspiration itself. So if I had like a limitless supply of like anything, I think off the top of my head, I would have to say a Gundam. Like a mobile suit Gundam, like the original, like RX-78. Like that, I think if I had just like, every country in the world was behind me, I had all the money, I would make a mobile suit Gundam.
That would be amazing.
And not just like, because they have the moving statues in Japan. I would want like, fully can like run around and has like the giant lightsaber. And like if it's all the money in the world, I'm doing that.
I was gonna say I stumbled across one of those full-size animatronic ones in Japan, and it was the coolest thing. Just literally taking a walk at night after the conference that Matt and I went to out there, and like hearing robot sounds, and I'm walking towards the robot sounds, and then all of a sudden there it is, and it's this gigantic Gundam, and it does all this lights display, and it moves around, and blah 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 blah, and it was. It's the coolest thing. I was just like,
that is so cool.
I love it here.
I've never been able to see it in person. I think they have a new one right now, right? But it's still like attached to a base. Like it does like the walking movements, I think, but it's not like on its feet.
Oh. Yeah, I don't think this one's legs moved. I think it didn't do much, I'll be honest, in terms of like animatronics. I think
still cool though.
But it was still cool. And it was just cool to see it in person, like the thing, even if it didn't move, just seeing how big it is in person and being able to walk up near it would be amazing. What kind of challenges would there be in making one of those actually functional?
I think a big part of it is just going to be like, first of all, to make it move as fast as it would, like sort of in the anime, right? Like Gundam Wing, or the original Gundam. It's like an anime series where there's these giant fighting robots, but they move like essentially like they're just giant people, right? Like they just, they can run around, they can like do these like sword fighting moves. And the issue is, like, when you actually have something that big, it's just like so ridiculously, tremendously heavy, right? If this whole thing is made out of like steel, then to be able to actually have it walk around is one thing, but to be able to have it like run, that is insane to like try and do that, because your options at that point for moving around something like a giant heavy robot arm, we're talking like hydraulics, which are not really known for like high speed actuation. So that's the tough part. I think though, what I would, again, all the money in the world, all the resources in the world, I would definitely go towards, I think, trying to make the whole thing sort of like electrically actuated. So like think of like the electric motors in like a Tesla, but like in a robot arm. I think maybe with the right gearing, with the right sort of like design, I think you might be able to have a giant robot, or at least like giant-ish, that could like really, really like do some awesome kung fu moves. Maybe.
That sounds awesome. Because it's so heavy, wouldn't it just crush everything it walked beneath, like tearing up roads and stuff like that?
Yeah, one of the big problems. I mean, there's so many problems with things like Pacific Rim, like the kaiju that exist in there, and like the robots that have to fight them. And just like one of them is sort of like issues of surface area and mass. And like one of those issues is the fact that, like, you know, if you have a humanoid shape and you scale it up to a certain size, like at that point, it's kind of like putting like imagine putting like a bowling ball on two toothpicks, right? And trying to set that like on the ground, like in dirt, right? It's just going to sink right in. So like at a certain point, even if you're shaped like a humanoid with two legs and like looks correct, you're going to be so massive that those two legs are going to act as sort of like these like very concentrated pressure points, and you might just kind of like sink into your knees through the asphalt at a certain size. So I think though for a Gundam, I don't know off the top of my head, in the world of giant robots, I think it's relatively smaller. Like I think a Gundam properly is probably less than like, I want to say less than like 10 stories. I think it's probably around 70 feet tall, like 50 to 100 feet, if I had to guess, compared to say like Neon Genesis Evangelion, where like those robots are like multiple times larger than that. That is ridiculous. That I would not even try to do. But like a 5-story robot, maybe.
This was a major issue in the development of the tank, because the tank's feet could not be tires. You know, tanks actually started from ships, you know, the ironclad ships. That was the idea. And the idea was, let's put one of those ships on land. And they didn't want to call it a land ship over the radio, because then it might give away what it is. This is, you know, on the very first use of the tank, and it looked kind of like a water tank, and so they called it a tank, and its name stuck, right? But eventually you get something like the Soviet T-55, which weighs something like 48 tons, and there's no tire that is going to behave properly. It's going to sink in that bowling ball on a toothpick way that you just described. So instead, these big, wide, long treads spread out that weight, distribute it very, very evenly, and you have a functional tank. So why couldn't you have feet on one of these that expanded out into a big, oval, just like anything that would distribute the weight?
I mean, you could, but then it would look like a duck, right? It'd have like these big, like wide paddle feet.
And I feel like
that's just not the spirit of it. I don't know. I mean, the other option is, I mean, that's really interesting about the tanks. I never actually thought about that, but like totally makes sense now why tanks would have to have treads.
Yeah.
But this is
They
like
would
a
just
big
sink in
thing.
the mud otherwise. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you've got, I think a really good example of this is this other YouTuber. It goes by the Hacksmith, James Hobson. Like me and him are friends, and one of the things that he's done is he's working on a real life power loader from Alien. right? Like when Ripley is like doing the showdown with the Queen at the end of the movie, and the issue that they had, which is the same thing, which is like legs are really, really hard. And so they've sort of made a compromise to like bring this thing into real life. They're designing it around a sort of a like essentially using the base of like a bulldozer, basically like a little tractor thing. So it's got treads and it's got wheels instead of legs. The whole upper body still has sort of the same like claw design, but that's just like the thing about legs is that sort of at a certain point, sort of the cost benefit, it just really doesn't make sense unless you want your robot to look cool. If you want your robot to just get from A to B in the simplest way possible, it's really like wheels, it's treads, it's basically anything other than two legs.
What about dinosaurs? I don't know anything about dinosaurs. I feel like we need to have a dinosaur person on the podcast. But like
dinosaurs.
Brontosaurus is really big, right? I mean, how big were their duck feet walking around, not sinking in the swamp mud and getting trapped forever? I mean, maybe that's what happened, and now they're oil.
I mean, I certainly think it helps to have 4 feet instead of 2, right? You double the surface area just in that way. And also, like, the size of their feet. I don't know anything off the top of my head about the size of their feet, but, you know, I'm sure that they must have had, like, very, very, very wide stompers, you know, very flat, very, like, to distribute the weight as sort of like wide out as possible. But yeah, it's kind of insane.
I've
to
got some
think
numbers
about.
for you, Alan.
Yeah.
This can inform your perspective here,
okay.
And then you can tell us how it worked. So from what I'm seeing, we're looking at about 20 tons. The estimates range 35 to 49,000 pounds on the Brontosaurus, but the footprint is about, it says 5 feet 9 inches, in mostly diameter. You know, it's not a perfect circle,
Wow.
but I think you're looking at a pad that's like 5 to 6 feet. How would 5 to 6 feet, 4 of those, 20 tons, is this going to work?
I mean, you know, clearly if they existed, then it did work, right? And like if you think about it, I'm 6'2". So that means that the diameter of this freaking foot was just a little like I could pretty much lay down, spread out eagle, and like be almost entirely enveloped by a single Brontosaurus footprint. Like a Brontosaurus could like step in the ground and make like a kiddie pool. And then it's got 4 of those, right? And so if you think about like if you look at the next nearest sort of like engineering challenge that we would have to do, I don't know, for whatever reason, I'm coming up with like, you know, if you're creating something like a parking garage, like a structure where it's like, you know, you've got a massive amount of weight supported on like columns or beams. I think you can sort of imagine like similarly, you've got just essentially what is a very like wide, very muscular column. You got 4 of them. I think being like 6 feet, 5 feet 9 inches in diameter, that is a huge area. And to have 4 of them, I mean, I couldn't think of, that makes sense to me. I could not think of a foot that would be smaller than that could possibly work, right? Especially because like if it's walking around, that means that like, you know, depending on what its gait style is, it could have 1 foot or even 2 feet off the ground at any given time. So it's very impressive. True, very impressive engineering there.
Can I just say really quickly and complain a bit about dinosaur things? Okay,
yes,
so
please.
I remember at one point them saying them. You know, them with a capital T. Yes. That Brontosauruses didn't exist. That, you know, even though as kids, there were like 4 dinosaurs that everybody knew, and Brontosaurus was one of them, at some point they were like, just kidding, there was no Brontosaurus. Your childhood dreams are ruined. So I was remembering that, and I just Googled it, and it turns out that in 2015, they decided, never mind. And the Brontosaurus came back and they were like, you know what? Sorry about the whole Brontosaurus not being real thing. We were wrong about that. And that apparently there were actually 3 known species of Brontosaurus. So forget the whole thing about them not being real. It's just it's such a strange if science in general.
Correctly, I think the issue was that like, I think originally the idea was that this idea of a Brontosaurus was sort of the result of misinterpreting a couple of different species of giant animal bones and sort of lumping them together. And I think for a while, the thought was that like, oh, there's like this idea of a brontosaurus is kind of like old fashioned. Like we know better now that this was more like an apatosaurus or something and this other dinosaur. And they were kind of conflated. Now that we have more fossil evidence, we've determined these are actually two different species. And I guess what must have happened is the, evidence may have started pointing in another direction. And it's like dinosaurs are so hard. They died out 65 million years ago. And I think what people don't appreciate is not just the length of time that they've been gone. So the fact that there's any evidence for them at all is like miraculous. But the fact that like dinosaurs existed for hundreds of millions of years. And I think part of that is like, we don't really like show that very well in sort of culture. Like, we don't really in Jurassic Park or whatever, they all kind of exist at the same time. But I think if I remember correctly, it's like the time, I think it was like between the Stegosaurus and the Tyrannosaurus, they existed in time. They existed in time that was more separated out than the time between now and Tyrannosaurus. There was hundreds of millions of years when dinosaurs existed. And I've done like some really quick math on this. I'm pretty sure all water on Earth has been dinosaur pee. It's like mathematically almost impossible that it wouldn't have been pee at some point for our dinosaurs to be around for hundreds of millions of years. Because I think the ocean cycle, like between like the surface ocean and like the deepest part of the ocean to like sort of like go between one and the other, it's on the order of thousands of years. So it's like the oceans were able to cycle like hundreds of thousands of times when dinosaurs roamed the earth. I cannot, again, haven't done the hard math, but just back of the envelope, I cannot see a way that all the water on Earth has not been dinosaur pee at some point. That's how long they were around. Humans, depending on like it, like the most lenient definition of humans, like we're talking like early hominids, like we probably still had tails, like being very, very, very lenient on that definition. You could say like maybe 2 million years, like maybe like that we had sort of like hominid precursors for around 2 million years. And it's like dinosaurs have that beat by hundreds of times.
I want a
there's
P
this,
comparison.
There's an analogy, a clock and Wait, hold up. What kind of P comparison do you want, Kevin? What do you want to compare here exactly?
I want to compare how much dinosaurs peed compared to how many humans have peed. like if dinosaurs have peed oceans, how much pee have humans made? It's got to be, can we fill a super soaker?
Well,
I don't know.
Look, we don't have time on our side, but we do have numbers, right? The population of humans is crazy. But
we don't pee that much.
Yeah, I mean, you've got we're nearing about 8 billion, I think, at this point. And if every one of those people pees, I don't know what the average amount of pee is per person per day, but it's got to be on the order of like a liter, right? Like, so you're talking 8 billion liters of pee a day.
I think you're very subtly calling out India and China right now for contributing to the world's piss burden. That's what I'm hearing.
Look, if depends on what your goal is here, right? If you're trying to beat the dinosaurs record, then China and India are probably your friends.
Yes, I am trying to beat the dinosaurs record. That is my goal. Absolutely.
I think we're probably still a few million years away from that. Like, think about that. Like we are still millions of years behind, even with even hitting, if we move to Mars, and then it wouldn't even count because that's not Earth water anymore. What we could do is we could think about it this way. We beat the dinosaurs to the moon. All of the frozen pee that is on the moon is human pee. No dinosaur pee is in there at all. I mean, unless you count that it was dinosaur pee that eventually became water that we eventually drank. But you can't count it like that. Otherwise, we'd never win.
There's dinosaur adjacent pee.
Yeah. I mean, and there's nothing you can do about that. They just beat us chronologically.
Wait, if human beings are mostly water, does that mean we're mostly dinosaur pee?
If you want to look at it like that, I don't think that's a factually incorrect statement.
There, take that. Let's see Neil deGrasse Tyson tweet that.
Yeah, I mean, I would gladly have him somehow like discredit that or like disprove that. Like, again, this is just me being like pretty sure off some rough numbers. I don't see how it would be, I don't see how you could prove otherwise that humans are not mostly dinosaur pee. It would be tricky, I think. It'd be really tricky.
There's, I do want to put this in perspective for people thinking about the timelines and the way things match up. There's an analogy for the Earth as a clock, right? And so the formation of the Earth is at 00 for time, and then all the different events happen at different points. Alan was saying that we came pretty late in the game. Well, to put that in perspective, in this clock that starts at 12 a.m. midnight, humans appear at like 11:58 and some seconds p.m. So almost completely at the end. And dinosaurs, are like 10 something. But that's really how late we all are in the game of playing Earth. But yeah, dinosaurs did better and had been around earlier and longer. But yeah, we're right at the tail end. Just literally like 1 minute of Earth's 24-hour existence has had humans on it.
Yeah, I mean, it's if you look at that clock and you even look at like recent accomplishments, like the first flight at Kitty Hawk to like the first man on the moon. What is that, like 60 years? Like, it's insane. Like, it's absolutely crazy how fast that was. I think there was
in this.
I don't remember the exact measurements, but I'm pretty sure the Wright brothers, like the length of their first flight at Kitty Hawk, eventually they were physically able to ride on a commercial airplane that had a wingspan that was longer than their first flight was.
Wow.
In their
that's
lifetime.
Pretty wild how quickly that moved.
Yeah. Can you imagine being like a
Kevin,
freaking Wright brother?
Yeah, you get to see it play out, and they're some of the people who are just dying now who are like 110 years old. When you think about what they saw, like literally from that very early, like just kind of getting engines that can be used on land in a reasonable way to, now what have they seen in the last couple of years? An internet full of cat and feet pictures, right? But
okay, maybe it doesn't always go forward.
That's the majesty.
Maybe sometimes things go backwards.
But Kevin, do you recall a conversation that you and I had about how there are fewer like big things to strive for now as opposed to in the past, like excitement over going to the moon, like pushing innovation? Am I making this up? Like those things?
No, that's
changing
100%
the pace of
a real
innovation.
Thing.
Like in terms
it kind of has to do with we've sort of plucked the low-hanging fruit of a lot of the sciences. Well, I guess it's really like a lot of physics. And in terms of making like bigger leaps, we have to come up with crazy innovations that we're like really far away from making any headway on, like quantum things. I don't know. But in terms of like going from like steam engines to Teslas is really kind of not a huge leap. It's all kind of like the same thing. But going from where we are today to...
I remember you saying it with
a similar
iPhones.
Jump is like...
Yeah.
I see. So is it kind of like you're thinking of this idea of like sort of some of the first sort of physics discoveries were things that you could like if you had a prism and you noticed that like the spectrum of white light of sunlight was split into like a rainbow and like there was an actual infrared spectrum that was coming out too. That was a major advancement, but like theoretically anyone with like a piece of glass could have like actually come up with that, versus now to make a new sort of scientific discovery, like you need CERN, you need like, because we've sort of like gotten that low hang. Is that kind of what you're getting at?
Yeah, more or less. And it's kind of going to be really hard. I guess that the internet and then the advent of the smartphone were huge. Those were gigantic leaps, obviously. But the next leap, I don't know. We've sort of stagnated overall.
That's what everyone thinks, though. Like that's like literally like the that who was, I think it was like the 30s, was it the 1930s, where like whoever was the head of the patent office at the time retired, and he was like, I think we pretty much did it. Like, I think it's all been invented now.
Oh, right. Yeah, that's come up a lot of times, that people think we've really peaked. And it makes sense that somebody would think that, because it literally is not possible to think a whole lot beyond where you're at. So like even the people we think of as the most famously forward-thinking people, like an Elon Musk, he's not proposing anything that is completely wild and out there. So like, let's go to Mars. Well, we've been to the moon. I mean, this is a bigger, better extension of it, but it's not like a new idea. Let's make a car that runs on electricity and looks cool as hell. Like, okay, it's not like he invented the car itself out of nowhere. So even, Steve Jobs, another famous guy, it wasn't, here's an iPhone, and nobody's even thought of like phone calls before now. No, it was, I've made a better version of the shitty attempts at portable phones that we've had for like 25 years. So even those people are really just like baby steps away from reality. Whereas, like Alan, you mentioned the Arthur C. Clarke stuff in your channel name. Like sci-fi writers have always, from Jules Verne, that kind, in that era, to now, they play with stuff that is really out there, really outside of the realm of possibilities sometimes. But reality just can't work that way. And I can see somebody in a patent office seeing detailed submissions of ideas, thinking this is kind of the limits of the human mind, and we're not going to get substantially better than this anytime.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what's so like wonderful about science fiction, right? Is that there's almost this like closed loop between like, how many engineers and scientists have said that they've come up with some kind of like invention because they were inspired by, like an Arthur C. Clarke book, or like even like when you watch 2001: A Space Odyssey, which Kubrick and Clarke worked together very closely on. They're almost two halves of the same. Like, it's not quite an adaptation. They actually worked on the book and the movie together. And you see, like, they've got what are essentially iPads, and like that actually like became evidence of in court of like some kind of patent dispute that Apple had, right, over whether or not anyone could make sort of like a tablet that looked like that. And like, you've got people who write sci-fi who are inspired by sort of like the actual inventions of the time. Like, the entire space race, that we landed on the moon in 1969. I'm pretty sure that 2001: A Space Odyssey actually came out in 1964. So it's like that atmosphere was around. So it's like if we hadn't been engaged in a space race at the time, would 2001: A Space Odyssey have happened? I don't know. But it's like definitely like this sort of back and forth where if you're a sci-fi author, I think for the most part, you're not limited by the technology of the time. An engineer is going to be limited by what they have available to them. Whereas if you're writing sci-fi, you can kind of like go completely off the rails. But in doing so, you end up inspiring someone in the future when like they may actually start having more abilities or more resources that allow them to like try and build towards the thing that they've seen in sci-fi. So it's like this kind of wonderful cycle of inspiration where hopefully one day we get to upload our brains into a computer. That would be something. That would definitely like mess everything up if that was sort of like the next like leap we were able to do, is like, just fully like all the billionaires become immortal. I think everything would just completely be ruined.
Yeah, they all have their heads in jars, like in Futurama.
Exactly.
Yeah, I guess the point is like a lot of the stuff that we have now was envisioned a really long time ago. Like I've found a lot of stuff over the years that I've tweeted, usually on the Vsauce2 Twitter account, where it'll be like a video phone, and it's from like 1961, and like Westinghouse or something created. And it's like the phone of the future. See your loved ones through a television connected to a phone, and it's like, Okay, it took us a while to get there, but they were trying to do that like 60 years ago. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There hasn't been like, wow, we never thought of that in a long time, I guess, aside from really the internet itself. Like nobody thought of that.
Yeah,
Until it happened, obviously.
Smartphones and any of the platforms that are, can you, how would you describe TikTok to somebody in 1990? Like, how would you even start?
Oh, even if you described it decently, they wouldn't think anybody would do that. They wouldn't think anybody would want to watch that.
Yeah, like imagine trying to explain like what a TikTok trend is. Like imagine trying to explain like you go back in time about 30 years. And I don't know, is Seinfeld on the air at that point? And you grab someone off the street. They've never been on the internet. There's no cell phones. I mean, there are, but they're like these bricks that only rich people have. And you're like, okay, this is what a TikTok trend is. Specifically, like how many, it would take hours. Like it would take hours to even explain that one meme to them. And that's 30 years ago, right? So I think it's easy. I think maybe it's difficult for us to say like whether or not there's really been sort of a large leap because we've sort of like, we've been in it. And it's not until I think what's going to happen is there's probably a couple out there right now that's about to conceive a child that will be the one that makes us look like idiots when we're old, right? Like there's like somewhere out there, I don't know if they've been born yet. Maybe they are a baby at this point, but someone is probably soon going to appear that when they grow up, we will be the ones who end up looking completely out of touch at Thanksgiving.
I wonder, as you're talking about these advances and things changing, and from our discussion before we started recording the episode about what you would go back in time to do, I thought, okay, these little things have an effect on how we think about everything. I think there's a point at which advances themselves, are not mattering so much as losing different things. And I think of this in terms of pain relief. When I think about sports things like over the last 100 years and compare like a baseball record from 1920 to something now, one of the things that pops into my head is how much easier it is now to get proper medical attention, to take just generic painkillers like Aleve and Tylenol and ibuprofen, over-the-counter stuff we get at Walmart that wasn't around 100 years ago. Well, there's an extension to that when you're talking about putting heads into jars and uploading brains and whatever. Why wouldn't we edit pain out of the human experience? Physical pain. No more headaches, no more muscle pain. No more bee stings being a problem. If you cut yourself, it doesn't hurt. What changes about what it means to be human and how people interact with each other and the things they aspire to when physical pain is no longer part of the human condition? I think there are substantial changes that will happen when we lose different elements.
Dude, why stop there? If we're at a point where, we've gotten to a point in like neuroscience and in physiology where like, you could, interface a brain with a computer or even upload it and then like fully edit like whatever pathways are responsible for whatever feelings and behavior. Like, why even stop at pain, dude? At that point, that really, really, really throws a wrench into the entire idea of humanity or of a soul or whatever. Because the first thing I would do, I would put my brain into a spaceship, and then I would reprogram myself so that I would get like sexual satisfaction. I would reach sexual completion upon making scientific discoveries. And my spaceship body would just fly through the universe, just orgasming and discovering black holes and shit, like for the rest of time, to the end of time. Like if that was an option, that's the end of humans as we know it. Because that's what I would do. And that's just me. Like, who knows what bizarro crap people are going to end up doing when they can like change, like not just pain, but like the reward centers, they're like their own drives and motive. Like if that was fully an option for you to be like, you know what, I want to be someone who is really into, like, I want to be a musical genius. And then you just put in some like development environment, like you type in the code, like, musical genius equals true. And then it just happens. Like, that's the end, dude. I would fly away. I would go in my spaceship. I'd fly away and just orgasm all over the universe.
Don't you think there's some level of I don't know, it being a bad idea to change the reward systems to edit out unhappy things?
Oh, I'm sure.
Because I'm thinking,
it's going to be a mess if that.
But you don't care?
I mean, it's not so much that I don't care. It's more like, A, I'm probably not going to be around for that. And B, like, it's kind of once the genie's out of the bottle, it's a moot point. It's not really like whether or not it's good or bad. It's like, all right, how do we deal with this? It's like social media now, right? I think that's like social media is like some of the worst brain hacking possible. Like it's entirely like this thing that is just using sort of the worst impulses of our monkey brains to generate profit for companies. And it's like, it's probably, I would not be surprised if in a few decades, it's looked back on the way we look at cigarettes now. Like we get new regulation for social media. We recognize that it was like an awful thing that we all did. And like we have like a whole generation that's just like completely messed up by it. I wouldn't be surprised. I'm not saying that that'll happen. Like it might be like a certain point too far gone. But I wouldn't be surprised.
But I just feel uneasy about the whole thing, even with like the social media stuff where there's an element of personal responsibility to, learn to process things in an advantageous or less bad way. There's, personal responsibility to like not sign up on Twitter if you can't handle it kind of thing. And I just don't know how far you can go with some of that stuff. But I think with tweaking everything, whether it's editing memories or banning experiences, how many people have negative experiences, at least seemingly negative at the time, that turn into something really positive and awesome? For example, just this is, I'm making it up on the spot, but let's say somebody is on a massively popular TV show and they get eliminated from the competition right before the finale. On that day, theoretically, I'm sure that sucked, right? But look what it's done for you. Like, look at what it's done for everybody over the last 5 years. So how do you decide to play with experiences like that when you don't know what they're actually going to play out to be?
I guess, I mean, would say like, if you had a chance to talk to Bruce Wayne, and Bruce Wayne is real and you know his identity, and you asked him, well, look at all the good you've done, wouldn't you say in a way it was like a good thing that your parents got mowed down that alleyway? What do you think he would say? It's kind of like, I think Bruce Wayne would be like, no, like, yeah, I'm Batman and that's awesome. But like, if I could trade that in to have my parents back, I would totally do it. And I think it's like, it's more a matter of like, because we don't necessarily have that choice. It forces us to accept things as they are and to, maybe make some positive occur out of negative things. And I'm not, I don't mean to say that me being eliminated from a reality show was as heavy as Batman losing his parents as a child. No, it was fine. It was like totally fine. What I am saying though is that it's interesting in that like we may just kind of have this attitude that in the future could be looked back on as like being kind of like sick or being backwards. That, once people do have the option, if they do have the option of, say, editing a memory, like maybe, Bruce is able to go into some neural link place and he's able to like, not forget that it happened, but, remove sort of the trauma of it so that he can just acknowledge that the event occurred without, feeling the weight. Once that's a choice, who's to say what people in the future are going to, perceive that as and how they're going to perceive us? I mean, look at any of the like notions that, say, the Greeks had about, I don't know, like the weird sort of like boy sexuality stuff they had. Like that was like totally fine back then. and it's kind of weird now.
Right, it made sense at the time. Yeah, it's more of a fringe thing with an age gap like that. But you're right. At the time, it was seen as benevolent, and that stuff does change. But it seems tough to be able to, like what you described with taking that pain away. It's like, let's keep all the benefits from this bad thing happening, but let's find a way to erase all the bad
who
feelings.
Knows? I would I'd imagine that if you could edit your brain, a lot of people would just choose to be Batman.
What would you edit out? What would you edit out or alter or whatever? You're in the Allen Pan brain, just like poking things with a stick. Allen Pan brain. Yeah, you're just poking it with a stick. But what would you soften or remove in like this entire from USC to today?
Other than my orgasm spaceship idea.
You'd keep that, yeah. But is there anything that you're like, you know what, that actually was really difficult and sucked for not enough benefit?
I think I would definitely I would turn down like whatever dial there is for sort of like content anxiety. I think that's something that a lot of people who make videos can sort of like, relate with. It's like that feeling like when you have a video that like just doesn't do it. Just doesn't. Everyone has a stinker. And then it's just like, you're like, oh geez, like my career's over, my channel's dead. It's like, I think I'd probably, it's not necessarily bad to sort of, have something to drive you to like always try and make better stuff. But I might turn that dial down a bit if I had like a control panel in front of me that was like the simple version, not like the advanced spaceship version.
Can I go the other way with all of this memory stuff and say I would save things? Like I can't remember anything. My brain is just like a completely flat, glossy chicken cutlet with no information whatsoever and no ability to retain anything. And everything that happens to me just drips out of my ear like some sort of primordial goo and slides down the drain and then turns into dinosaur pee. So I would love to be able to remember things. Like it's amazing to me when people tell me stories about things that happened to them in like third grade. Like, oh, when I was in third grade and my friend did this and like I couldn't believe it. And I'm like, I don't remember third grade. I don't remember fourth grade. I don't remember any grade. I remember no grades. I don't really remember college. I barely remember the last 10 years. It sucks. It's not like a good thing. It's really annoying actually, because I feel like it'd be nice to remember stuff that has happened.
Would you ever do like a total recall situation where it's like, say you could, like you had the choice to remember all that stuff, but then you could additionally like remember other stuff too, like essentially if you had the choice to sort of do like the Rick and Morty Roy game, right, where you like get to have multiple lifetimes of other people's experiences as your own memories along with your own, would you choose to do something like that?
I don't know. I would like to start with my own experience. Like that would be
right. No, you get
where
that
I would start
as the base, and then like, hey, for $49.99 extra, we can throw in the old lady from the Titanic and her life experiences in there too.
I don't think so. I don't think I need that. I think that it would be traumatic enough. It's clearly like traumatic enough just to be me because I've just blocked everything out. I couldn't imagine taking on old lady from Titanic's problems as well.
I would, I feel like almost like you wouldn't be able to just do like one other one. You'd have to do like a bunch. Like I think if I had like my memories and the old lady's memories, it'd be just like really confusing. But then if you just like dilute it all the way, it's like it doesn't even matter at that point. Because I think it'd be cool to like, if you had an entire lifetime of experience alongside your own, I think you would probably approach life really differently. Like if you remembered like being the old lady on her deathbed, I think you would do things differently. Along with like 10 other people on their deathbed. Like you remember dying like 10 times. I mean, come on.
I don't know. I think my brain would explode.
Yeah, I mean, that's the other thing. It's like we may get to a point where we might be like headed there now. I mean, that might be like the patent office guy, but like we might get to a point where like we really are pushing against the absolute sort of bounds of what a human brain is capable of. I mean, none of we have big brains with a lot of neurons that, you know, our main survival adaptation, you know, isn't poison, isn't claws. It's just that we are super duper mentally adaptable. But it's like, you know, what's the upper bound of that? It could be like, you know, Neil deGrasse Tyson has this thing that he says keeps him up at night, this fear that to understand certain physics, like we may get to a point where it's just we are physically incapable of, we are as physically incapable of understanding what the next level of physics is as a dog would be learning calculus, right? You know, a dog trying to teach it anything, any kind of math, you know, it's just physically because of its brain, just how it's set up, it's just impossible. So it's like, you know, we've been very lucky in a sense that up to this point, we've been able to like make the sense and discoveries that we've been able to make. But it's like, where do we kind of hit up against a limit? Like, is there a limit? Are we already there? And that might actually be sort of like, you know, if we do have a jump in technology, it's probably going to be like AI, right? Where we may, even if we aren't capable of doing, you know, some next level physics, we may be capable of creating something that could do that. Like we might maybe be able to come up with a mind that's greater than our own. And then what are we? Then we're just kind of garbage. Oof.
Yeah, we are kind of garbage.
That went over well.
Lack of real. No. I think we had a delay on that.
Okay.
But I was thinking the same thing that because I'm hearing like I can hear, you know, microphones, whatever, like you can tell when it's on, right? And I was hearing 100% dead silence. I'm like, okay, well, something's wrong. But this is going to sound to the people who aren't used to the difference like this is just the longest, like jaw-dropping, awkward moment that we've ever had on this podcast.
and now we're just garbage.
I could tell you a moment. I'm trying to think back to awkward moments we have had on the podcast. There was the famous burp, which I won't go into now. Aficionados of the Create Unknown know the burp that I'm talking about. But one of the moments was when we heard about a crime having happened in one of our episodes. Do you know about that, Alan?
No, I'm hearing this for the first time. I'm intrigued.
Okay, let me pull a little quote on it because I think it was episode 61 with a man named Michael Reeves. He accused you by name of stealing one of his T-shirts.
It wasn't one.
The theft
it was like
accusation
his
was actually
closet.
phrased. That's right. His quote about it was, "That motherfucker stole my clothes." How do you respond to committing that kind of crime?
That's entirely true. There's no argument there. I am that motherfucker who stole his clothes because Michael is a tiny little human Z. He's a little gremlin hybrid between a person and a chimp. But the thing is, he tended to wear in the past baggy clothing. And so between me and him, we actually like have almost, it's a bit tight on me, his shirts, but like I can just about wear some of his shirts. And when he moved to offline TV, he like left basically his entire, I don't know if he was going to come back for it, but he left a bunch of stuff in his closet and I took it all. I'm not going to argue anything. I'm not going to defend my actions. It's just, it is what it is. I am that motherfucker who stole all of his shirts. And if you watch any of my videos in like the last year, most of the, like at least half of those clothes are Michael Reeves clothes that I'm just wearing.
Wow, that's pretty in your face. Like that's the chutzpah that it takes to pull that
He has
off.
some nice
Is you
shirts.
steal them and then you just wear them in every YouTube video until the end of time.
He has nice shirts. I don't like shopping for clothing. It was just a very, very simple solution for me to just steal his clothes because I kind of was running out of shirts and he left behind shirts. And so I took them all.
That's what I was going to ask. I was like, why do you need all of these clothes? You don't have your own clothes?
No, I was
he's just that styling.
Getting towards the end of a clothing life cycle, and it just happened to be there.
I'm just so surprised that it matches up well enough because you described Michael as not being a giant. He's not.
He's like
I'm trying to
5
think.
feet shorter than I am.
Yeah, well, you said you were 6'2".
Yes.
And there's a substantial height difference between you and Michael Reeves. And I just think, like, how is it possible, even with him wearing kind of longer shirts, like, how is this actually working?
I'm going to be the first one to say that it's not perfect. Like, it definitely gets a little hazardous around the mid-drift, but the...
oh, no.
Like it works just good enough. I maybe wear my pants a little bit higher, but like it's just honestly so much better than having to go shopping. Like the fact that there was just a closet full of free clothing there that like just about fit me.
Well, I really wanted to ask you. I want to do. We haven't even talked about your content, so I think that we maybe should mention that at some point during this podcast.
Am I just some guy? I make videos.
That's what happens when the content is so ridiculously boring that there's nothing to talk about.
It's much better to talk about
seriously.
the dinosaur pee than whatever the hell it is I'm doing.
Wow, there is
then the thing that shoots flames out of your wrist. Yeah, that's
I'd much rather talk about being
dinosaur pee is better,
replaced with AI.
Yeah. Well, someday maybe they will build things that are more interesting, but for now, you are the best that we have, Allen Pan, the humanoid, at building incredible things. You've been crushing it lately with some videos.
Oh, not the last one. People hated that last one, but I think that's just a little. Everyone's got to take an L now and then, so I think I'm fine with that. Other than that, yeah, it's been doing pretty good.
What were the criticisms? Why did they hate this video?
I made a mistake in that I definitely took on a very aggressive deadline for this video. I feel like if I had like another week, even like a few more days, I could have like really nailed the tone down. But basically, I've been playing around with like just sort of like the format of my videos, like what I have in my videos. And when I started my channel, it was very just straightforward, like kind of build montage. Here's a cool thing kind of a video. And that worked in like 2016. But, things are different now. And I think people really want to have like sort of parasocial relationships with creators, even if they're just building stuff. Right. And so I thought it'd be funny to roast some other YouTube inventors. And they were bigger than me. Like, I feel like if you punch up, like almost anything is fair game.
Punching up is okay.
Yeah. So it's like...
Yeah. And this video, by the way, this is the one where you fix famous YouTuber inventions. That's the one that you're talking about?
Yeah. So,
okay.
Jay Laser Video and the Hacksmith, and the Hacksmith is like 12 million subscribers, right? Like I'm like a little ant on the sidewalk compared to James. And I thought it'd be funny if I like took one of his coolest inventions, like a laser Iron Man repulsor, and I give it a low rate. I was like, this repulsor, it's pretty cool, but I'll give you 2 out of 10. And then I found just some random, like, nobody channel, like just some channel that had less than 1,000 subscribers. And I just picked one of their inventions. I was like, this is the real deal. 10 out of 10. And it was like 2 like soda cans hot glued together onto a glove. And people took it so seriously. It boggles my mind that like I thought it was so clear that it was like this joke of like the Hacksmith gets 2 out of 10, then this random kid gets 10 out of 10. And it did not land. It did not get received well at all.
No. Man, Alan, you haven't learned the lesson yet? The lesson of not trying to be funny online.
You just cannot
Because
there's
people don't get jokes.
Funny is
you
bad.
gotta sarcasm is the most dangerous game. Irony is the most dangerous. You just can't really. It's so hard to do anything that isn't just completely kind of like what I should have done. I think is I did not self-deprecate enough. Right. If I had done something like oh, James gets 2 out of 10 because he's way more handsome and successful than I am, then maybe people would have gotten it. But it was definitely a learning experience. At the very least, I didn't really know Jay Laser Video, but he reached out to me when I made that video because I gave him a 1 out of 10 and I really roasted him, and he just thought it was the funniest thing. And so now me and him are we're thinking about working on a video together, and it's that's a connection I would have never even thought about even attempting to do. And it happened because I, went after him in this video, and he turned out to actually be a really chill dude.
Yeah, you lucked out there, but yeah, it what didn't Jeremy Scott, we had Jeremy Scott from Cinema Sins. He mentioned some law. Was it Moore's law? There was something about the percentage of people who will not understand jokes. I don't remember it off the top of my head.
I think
right. No, Moore's law is about processor speeds increasing.
I know.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's I know
Poe's law. Is it Poe's law?
I can't think what it is.
It might be Poe's law.
Because I know the one where it's the easiest way to get a correct answer to a question isn't to ask the question, it's to post the wrong answer to that question and people will correct you.
Right.
It's something like that.
Yes. Yeah, the fastest way.
Yeah.
I cannot
Poe's law
think what this whole class of things are called.
It says it's impossible. Something without obvious pointers, it's impossible to understand sarcasm. I think that's what it is.
Yeah.
Poe's law.
That sounds like exactly what I learned recently with that.
Well, I run into this on my personal Twitter all the time because my personal Twitter is very, very stupid, and I purposefully say things that, well, it's just things that I find funny.
Right.
But a lot of people will respond seriously to what their jokes. And I know they're jokes, and a lot of people who follow me know that they're jokes, but a lot of other people don't think that they're jokes and they take them at face value, and then I'll get corrections or, serious replies, or people will answer my dumb question that's obviously a joke seriously.
Yeah.
And there's nothing you can do about that. It's just a certain percentage of people on the internet aren't in on the joke, and it just sort of, you have to, I just wouldn't do it that much in YouTube. On Twitter, I don't really, it's throwaway sort of and fun anyway.
Twitter's hard
but
because
on
it's
YouTube
all just
it's hard
written. It's so hard. As hard as it is to do something to say something sarcastically or ironically to make a point, it's even that much harder if it's written down and there's no intonation. That's tough.
Yeah. So yesterday I made some joke about how I wish dinosaurs were around so I could eat them.
That's funny. That's funny. Who would have not thought that was funny?
Well, thank you. I thought it was funny as well. But yeah, there are a lot of replies that are well, actually, chickens are descended from dinosaurs and basically are dinosaurs. And if you eat chicken, that's pretty much, or whatever.
Right.
Alligators, if you could eat alligator.
Implied that. Michael replied with a thing about chickens, didn't he?
He did. But obviously,
chicken, yeah.
Michael has a phenomenal sense of humor, and he knows me.
The roasted chicken was funny.
And that's how Michael and I became friends, because we both have
the next level one.
The same dumb sense of humor, actually. But yeah, without fail, no matter what the dumb, sarcastic, or purposefully smooth brain tweet is, there'll be a handful of replies that are actually, it's all right, guys.
Yeah. And part of that might just be I don't know, sometimes people just opening their mouths for the sake of opening their mouths, or I guess typing for the sake, so sometimes people just want to say something and to reply to the tweet, and rather than just going haha or LOL, maybe they feel they have to do something to add to it in some way. Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, no, actually that was we've talked about this kind of a few times on the podcast, and I think we talked about it with Captain Disillusion, and he said something very similar. That people, I mean, look, there are a lot of people on the internet whose connections are all based upon being on the internet. Like whatever their life circumstances are, they might not have people to interact with other than online. So it makes sense that they're just, kind of dying to interact regardless of with whom and what the subject is or whatever, just to have that. I mean, you were talking earlier about the capacity of our brains, and a while back I did a video on Dunbar's number, which is a hypothesis about a correlation between brain size and the amount of friendships we can have.
That's like the
intimate
upper
relationships.
limit is like 150 or whatever of like the people you could actually be close to, like the size of a village, basically.
Yeah. So an article came out, and I keep forgetting to tweet this, suggesting that it's lower than 150. They're like the latest research is saying perhaps 150 is too high, and Dunbar himself thought it was more like 150 to 250. And this new research is like, no, not even 150. Like it's lower than that.
I mean, that's a big yikes for me. Because I mean, again, like, the fact is that our brains are very adaptable, but there's had never been a time in human history like this in terms of just the sheer amount of like connections and interactions that you can have with other people. And, I think there is something to be said of like, could you really actually care about everyone you follow on Twitter? It's like, yeah, maybe you just start at a certain point, you just start acting like a dick to people because they're not even like, they aren't like registering as real people in your head anymore because they just can't. Maybe there's something to that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I see that. You must see that as well. Sometimes when people will say something very snarky or mean to you, and if you reply to them,
yes,
level-headed and just be like, hey, like, more or less, why did you say that? They'll instantly be like, oh my God, I'm sorry. I'm having a bad day.
Yeah.
And I didn't think you would see this. And it like turns into this thing where all of a sudden they like freak out. And it was as if when they left the mean tweet or the mean comment or whatever, they were just throwing it out at an inanimate object.
Yeah.
And then when it turns out that inanimate object is a real person, it kind of causes some sort of haywire in their brain, and they're like, oops,
yeah,
sorry. Like,
they're like,
I don't actually hate you.
Shouting into an empty cave, and then like the cave shouts back, like, oh wait.
Sorry, cave.
Yeah.
I didn't know the echo would happen.
What's your name? Tony. That's like it's interesting because that's almost like, the trend or the direction that I see is like this like full commoditization of human interaction, right? Because like to your point, like there might be people who like really the most sort of interaction they get with people is going to be through like, a Twitch stream, right? Or through a YouTuber, or, that the hours in the day that they spend with people may actually be majority online to, a parasocial, a one-way relationship. And like that is all, I mean, at the end of the day, it's to generate revenue for somebody. Like that's why those relationships exist. And at a certain point, it's like, suppose we get, I don't know, like this is going to sound really quaint in 50 years, right? But like, what if we have like really good AR and really good, like procedurally generated like animations of like a deep fake, right, of someone's face and voice, and we have like an AI that like replicates their sort of online persona very well. And it's like, okay, now it's like not just watching a streamer, but now it's like you pay some premium and you get to have this streamer, this personality hanging out on the couch with you as long as you got your AR on. And then it's like you get to hang out with this person, but then like every few minutes, like, oh, by the way, do you know Coke has a new flavor? Have you tried it yet?
Right.
And it just that's like
They're
sort of
selling
the
it.
ultimate conclusion, right? Like if you draw the trend line, that's kind of like where it's going to.
Yeah, this is the what happens, the mythical tier 4 sub. That's what happens with once you go beyond tier 3 subs on,
is you get
on
to
Twitch.
hang out with the
you get
the AI, the
Pokemon on your couch.
exactly. Like you and then it's like
You should hear what tier 5 is.
at that point, it's like, unfortunately, I'm plowing right through that, by the way. Unfortunately, at a certain point,
that's what you do at tier 5.
the incentive is to like entirely like if you could make money by replacing a person's entire human interaction with only online revenue generating interaction. Like if that was the incentive, that's what is going to that's what companies are going to go towards. Right? There's no incentive right now for people to have meaningful real relationships with their families and with their friends in real life, right? Like there's no one's paying for that. They are paying though to like watch as many hours in a day of a streamer as possible.
Right.
Well, haven't we seen some of those some of the inventions coming out of Japan where it's like, here's the little 4-year-old robotic grandson that we've invented for older people who don't have grandkids. That there's some kind of market where people value that enough to want that sort of thing.
Yeah, but it's unfortunate in that like it's almost again this idea of like once that's become an option, it means that there's a market for it, and once there's a market for it, it means that there is again a financial incentive to provide that, even if kind of coming back, even if it's not necessarily good for people, in the same way that maybe it wasn't good for Batman's parents to get gunned down in an alleyway. Once you have the option of undoing that, or you have the option of processing that in a like it's almost like if you give, I don't think the best possible world is one where you give everyone exactly what they want. I think for the most part, people like want a lot of things that are ultimately really bad for them and for everyone around them. And so you actually cater to everything that anyone wants, you probably end up in a really bad, messed up place.
It's an interesting concept, though. What you're saying, like for instance, if we could get to a point with AR or holograms or whatever, plus I don't know, machine learning algorithms, et cetera.
You just know, like everything we're saying right now is going to be so dated in even just a few years.
I'm sure it'll happen. What I'm saying is, like, if a person could hang out with like someone interested in engineering and building could hang out with a version of Allen Pan that's not you, but it's like a machine created Allen Pan. Right. And they could just hang out with you and pay to hang out with you and build things, and it would give you feedback. So you could say like Alan, is this the right point on this motherboard to solder? And the recreated Allen Pan would know the answer to that.
Yeah, it would know a lot more than I did, right? Because it would be connected to the internet.
Yeah, it would have all the right answers. And then at what point, when does anybody have friends that aren't that? Because why would you have a friend who's just some dummy who happens to live down the street from you when you could pay to have the ultimate like meta friend?
Exactly.
Which is
because the thing is
super Allen Pan.
Like I guarantee you, like hologram Allen Pan, like is never he's never gonna like disagree with you in an important way. Like you're never going to get into an argument with hologram Allen Pan. You're never going to have to compromise with hologram Allen Pan. Like hologram Allen Pan is always going to tell you that you look amazing and that you're doing great. And he's never hologram. There's at least I don't think there is. It may end up where it's like people do find value in, like, maybe it becomes like more real, right? Yes. If like a disagreement occurs. But for the most part, if someone's paying for hologram Allen Pan, I don't think there'd ever be a reason for hologram Allen Pan to get into an argument with you. in a way that you would have to, like you would
That's
have
part of the
to
process,
do without
though.
any real friendship, right? Any real friendship, you're gonna disagree on something. You're gonna butt heads, and it's like, it's like, exercising, or you have to have sort of these uncomfortable experiences. Like you do things that are at least uncomfortable or even painful to sort of grow as a person. And unfortunately, if you give someone this like perfect artificial friend that's never ever going to disagree with them, and always has their back for anything, like you're gonna end up with like a freaking sociopath.
Right. You basically described what stans are.
I mean,
but yet Stan is actually your best friend.
Yeah,
in this
imagine
scenario, and that's not great.
Fully like an AI fueled like, oh god, can you imagine like if any of the fangirls could like buy a Google Glass and virtually hang out with BTS, like that, it would be over. It'd all be over.
I don't know if anybody else has had this experience listening. Who knows? But if anybody has ever been on a date or in a relationship with somebody where the other person is way more into you than you are into them, they know the feeling that you're talking about, because, this person really likes you and they're very excited about everything and like whatever. And, that's not great. It's like if everything you ate was ridiculously sweet. You never had anything sour or savory. It's just like all cupcakes all the time. At a certain point, you don't, you just can't have that. It's not optimal at all. So it seems like any of those things would have to have some reality put into it.
Can I just derail this conversation for a second?
This has never been on rails. I don't think there was a single point where this conversation was on any kind of rails.
No.
Well, whatever
this is maglev.
Whatever it's
flying all over the place.
It's on. I want to push it further off of that, because it's so funny hearing you say hologram Allen Pan like over and over and over again. It reminds me of a million years ago, David Cross had this stand-up bit where he was impersonating Ricky Henderson, talking about himself in the third person. So, Ricky Henderson would say Ricky Henderson is a great baseball player because Ricky Henderson can get on base and Ricky Henderson can steal every single base all the time, because Ricky Henderson is the best leadoff hitter that has ever played the game, because Ricky Henderson is the greatest.
But I'm
and that's
not
why Ricky
Hologram
Henderson
Allen
will be in the
Pan.
Baseball Hall of Fame.
So that's like second person. It's a separate entity. When I say Hologram Allen Pan, that's him over there. That's not me.
You are literally a hologram on my screen right now. I can't even prove that you exist.
I just couldn't help but hear Ricky Henderson is so good when you're going, all right, Hologram Allen Pan.
We'll always treat you right. Hologram Allen Pan knows exactly
Hologram
what
Allen
you
Pan.
want.
Hologram Allen Pan will never let you down. Hologram Allen Pan has all
Never
of the
gonna
answers.
give you up. Never gonna let you down. Never gonna run around. Should I be looking at the episode chat? Do we have anything going on here?
Let's see. Well, Tom Videogre, as we say weekly, almost weekly, he has to miss a few because he works, but he's quick with links. Anything we mention is going to show up in the episode chat, whether it's an image, a Wikipedia article, a video. He's as fast as it comes on links. So that stuff's in there, and everybody else has been just kind of talking about things like, well, this was Tom as well. It sounds like a Black Mirror episode yet to be made. Yeah, all of this stuff does. A lot of these things that we've talked to are those kind of gently futuristic, is it or is it not a dystopia kind of plot lines. And that's what's really kind of fascinating about some of the crazy things that you and others come up with. Like, I know you've done some things that people have already seen, like the Thor's hammer and whatever, but like the implications of some of the crazier things, they're pretty interesting. Do you think about that? Do you think of a cool idea and then think about the implications, or does the idea come to you as you're considering something?
I do think
make sense?
Probably the one thing I can remember that was probably like sort of the closest to that was I made like a person remote control once, sort of like a way to like steer a human. And And it was funny because I had done probably too good of a job in that video because a lot of people thought that one was fake, because I think the biggest issue was I had built it out of I took a toy remote control car because I thought it was kind of like a funny gimmick to take the sort of brains out of an RC car and to turn it into this hardware platform that could control people. And it was almost too good because then people didn't think it was real. So it was this is like a well-researched phenomenon. People have known about this for over a century. This idea of galvanic vestibular stimulation. And so what you have, your inner ear is responsible for your sense of balance. And if you feel right behind your ear, there's a bone, a bony bump, and that's called your mastoid process. And so right behind there is essentially where, your inner ear and sense of balance is. But all that is kind of like a bubble level almost in concept. It's just a bunch of fluid and a bunch of hairs that can tell where the fluid is. And that's how you can tell sort of where level is. And if you send electricity, if you send a small current through your head between your mastoid processes, you can actually bias the neurons on one side or the other. So it makes your brain think that the ground under you is shifting one way or the other, because it's literally sort of recalibrating what your level is at, right? So with galvanic vestibular stimulation, you can actually make people feel like the ground under their feet is tilting one way or the other, and their body sort of will naturally go in that direction. If they're trying to walk in a straight line, it's sort of the sensation of suddenly it feels like you're on a very steep hill in one direction, and you try and compensate by walking sort of against what you think gravity is, against downhill. And so you end up veering to the left, right? If it tilts to the right, you kind of veer to the other direction. And so in that way, I built this weird helmet contraption with a remote control, and it could shoot current one way or the other. And so what it essentially did was it made a remote controlled person, because then it's the person wearing that helmet, they would walk and try and stay in a straight line. But if I hit left or right on the joystick on the remote control, they would then turn left or right. And everyone is affected a little differently by it, but there are certain people where if they're very receptive to it, I can literally slalom them through a slalom course blindfolded just by using a remote control. And that's that's one of those things where it's very, very low, low barrier to entry. I wouldn't necessarily encourage anyone to do that, because you are literally sending electricity through parts of your brain. But it's one of those things where it's the phenomenon is easy enough to recreate, but sort of the results are a lot of bang for your buck. And it's it is cool in sort of a really weird, creepy way to remote control a human body that way. And that's very unsophisticated, very low granularity, very, very, very sort of caveman body control. And so you can imagine if you were a little more sophisticated, if you were a little more like Elon Musk, the sort of things you'd be able to do to a human body.
This is, by the way, this is why I led with that line about these people being capable of amazing things for us or destroying us. This is exactly what I was talking about.
That's what I was going to say, because I think I asked William Osman this same question, but do you have any fear on any level that some little genius, but also kind of like Beavis and Butthead 13-year-old is going to build this thing because he saw it in your video. He's going to stick it on his grandma's head, and he's going to dump her off of the front doorstep, and she's going to break her hip.
Right. I mean, when I started out, that was kind of always in the back of my mind of I always got to say oh, this is, don't try anything you see in this video. This is only for educational purposes. And for the most part, what I've found, I've been making videos for 5 years, 6 years now, depending on how you count it. I took a few breaks. But for the most part, people usually seem to understand that the stuff I'm doing tends to be really stupid and dangerous. I haven't seen anyone really try to recreate anything in a way that is really risky. People have sort of built versions of some of the dangerous stuff. I made these sort of like firebending gauntlets. They're like these sort of like wrist-mounted flamethrowers that were punch activated. They had an accelerometer so they could detect the motion of your hands, and they would shoot a fireball every time you threw a punch. And it made a really cool effect of sort of firebending from like Avatar: The Last Airbender. And so that one was a really popular video, and a couple of people sort of, sent me pictures of like their own versions of like seeing the firebending gauntlets and trying to make their own. And for the most part, anyone who sort of like has sort of the gall to try that, like usually they're fine to do it. Like it's almost like a catch-22, right? Of like, Adam and Jamie on Mythbusters, they'd always start the episode of like, remember, like, don't try anything you're about to see at home. We're what you call experts. But it's, if you really think about it, like, how did they become experts? It's because at some point they had to be like stupid idiots who are just trying stuff. Like you don't become an expert until you like get experience. You don't get experience until you try it. So like there is like a weird gray area where you are going to have to try things that are dangerous with sort of like a very small amount of experience with dangerous things. So I haven't met anyone yet who's been in that area. Usually people who are trying my stuff are people who already have like done other stupid things too. So hasn't come up yet. Well, I'm not as worried about it now as I used to be.
That was more or less Osman's response was like anybody who is like interested enough to even try to attempt to recreate this thing has enough experience, at least, that they sort of know the pitfalls and know their way around, whatever it is, servers and electronics and stuff like that.
Yeah. I mean, especially for a project like that, the firebending gauntlets in particular are pretty involved. Like you can't, if you had no experience, that one is something like you couldn't even really get off the ground. Like you would be stuck at like step 1 trying to build those if you had never done anything like that before.
Right. Yeah. You would just have no idea what you're doing. Yeah. Before we get to, I have 2 questions on my own before we get to our patrons' questions. They have to wait because I come first.
Of course.
The first one is
they can wait.
They have to wait. They have no choice. I have a microphone, so that's how this works. These are Kevin Lieber questions. Kevin Lieber question 1 is: do you find that a couple of videos that you've done recently that have done very well are anime inspired? Do you feel as though the anime builds and kind of like anime inspired content is not oversaturated to a point yet that like superhero stuff is, and that you can stand out doing kind of niche anime stuff, whereas 5 years ago, you would have had to do Thor's hammer.
I love
you do Thor's hammer today, and it's been done a million times.
This is such a phenomenal question because it is something I have been thinking about. So, I mean, anime, I think, is sort of like this. I don't want to say like a slumbering giant. It's waking up, right? So, this is a TikTok fact. I heard this on a TikTok, so I have no idea as to its authenticity, but someone on TikTok with a graph that looked real enough claimed that of all the anime series,
if they had a graph, it's
the number of anime series, not necessarily like by minutes or by episodes, but number of discrete series. Half of all anime series were created after 2010. So, what that says is like there is like anime has been on this huge exponential curve, and now it's like literally this $1 billion industry, and it's happened relatively recently. I mean, even like dubs weren't even good until like 10 years ago. Like if that even. Like there was like a period of time where like in early 2000s, like you could get some really bad dubs of anime series and it would just be unwatchable. And now like dubs are good now. I swear to God, dubs are good now. And like where there is like, there's so much in terms of like sort of people building stuff from like Marvel, right? Like Iron Man tech, Captain America stuff, like any of that. There's so much of that now. And I mean, that was like partially sort of why I felt like it'd be funny to make fun of the Hacksmith and Jay Laser video, because I was like, well, I've always wanted to make this Iron Man repulsor, but it's like at this point, there's really not a good way to stand out because everyone's done it already. And I was like, well, I'm just going to make fun of these 2 other dudes who are really well known for doing it. which, your mileage might vary on the results of that. But anime, especially for like, engineering and anime or science and anime, right? Like, I think that is like still hugely untapped. I think there's a huge, huge, huge amount of space for like anyone who wants to do, I mean, I hate the term, but like science communication, right? To explain, there's so much to talk about just in terms of like physics of any anime series, of biology in any anime series. Like, it brings up so many like really great questions, and there's like such a huge amount of momentum and such a large fandom for like, something like Attack on Titan or like My Hero Academia or like Demon Slayer, like all these sort of like hit shows that are really, really, I would say it's definitely not saturated. I think there's a lot of room there. And I already have like, a lot of excitement for like trying to recreate anime stuff. I mean, it's going to literally take like a year, but like making like the 3D maneuver gear from Attack on Titan. Like, I think that's like a really, really like, that's one of those projects where it's like, I would really, really love to give that a shot. And it's, it's not going to be possible the way it's portrayed in the anime, like at all. But I want to like at least give it a try. I'll probably actually need like the hacksmith's help, like James's help for that, because it'd be such an involved build. But I think that's where it's at.
And some kind of circus tent or something.
He's got a really, James has a really big like warehouse, like a facility, like an Avengers compound. Like, I think there's plenty of room there to try out like, a dinky little real life 3DM gear. But yeah, I think a lot of potential, a lot of room for growth in anime.
Yeah, because one statistic, and again, this wasn't on TikTok, but it was on social media, so who knows if it's true or not, that I read had state.
We've got the graph in the episode chat right now, by the way.
Oh, beautiful. Yeah, so if you are a patron and you hang out with us, you can see this stuff live as it comes in. So, but I read that Demon Slayer itself, the manga of Demon Slayer, outsold all American comic books combined last year.
Wow. I mean, Demon Slayer is a great series. True.
Could be wrong. Yeah. Well, and the crazy thing, again, before we get off anime and I get to my second question, the crazy thing about anime is it's so rich creatively, where you could do a year just on Demon Slayer, because each episode has some demon that's different and has different components and has different things that, make them dangerous. And you could explore, what it is about this demon that's like a spider demon, and they can infect you with venom, and you turn into a spider in this amount of time, and here's how that correlates to this.
Absolutely.
Whatever.
I did a whole
Parasite,
month
blah, blah, blah.
on My Hero Academia characters, like trying to recreate quirks in real life from like 3, I think, My Hero Academia characters. And there's there's so many more characters just even in like the main class, like class 1A, where it's like you could do an involved build for every single one of them. And it would, it's like, it's
be a whole show.
It's like this just huge font of content that is possible.
So that kind of leads into my second question, and then we'll get to our patrons question, and that has to do with TV and with YouTube. So we're on TV and now you're on YouTube, and usually the guests that we talk to are trying to find some sort of path that's the opposite of this, building enough of a YouTube reputation and chops to kind of get on TV. What are your thoughts on that? Having experienced the opposite. Why? I'm so surprised.
We talked to Joe Hansen in depth about this, about the YouTube to TV pipeline and how it doesn't really exist, how hard it is for so many reasons. But that's kind of the general consensus is people would love to have a Netflix show.
Well, okay.
It's like I do cool stuff on YouTube, but let's be on Amazon Prime.
I could understand it more for a streaming platform, right? Like a Netflix or an Amazon Prime or a Quibi or whatever.
R.I.P.
Quibi. Yeah. Oh boy, darn! I'm sad that I didn't get a show on Quibi before it died. But it's like maybe for streaming, but other than that, like I would never see any reason for someone who is like successful enough on YouTube or any other online platform where they're like, in a position where they could have a TV series, like why they would bother. Just everything about TV, like unless you're pulling in really good numbers on TV, like the pay isn't even that good. And the sort of like the filming of things, like it's just more involved. Like any of the stuff that I build, like, I run and gun, I film everything once or twice, basically. And on TV, you could, the most simple piece to camera, you could end up doing like 5 takes of it. It takes all day just to do a little thing on TV. And like, even with like the budgets, like this idea of like, oh, well, maybe you could do like a really, really big, crazy build if you had a TV show budget. It's like, I mean, if you get the right sponsor and the right pitch, you could do it. I mean, look at any of the things that Mark Rober does, right? Mark Rober pulls in more numbers than any TV show. And so he's able to do like these ridiculous, like enormous builds that you would never be able to do with a TV show. So it's like, for me to hear that, like there's people who are like really interested in sort of like the online to TV pipeline, like that's so crazy to me. Like that's just not where it's at, in terms of like, you want to talk about dinosaurs, TV, that's a living dinosaur. Now Netflix,
is it
I get Netflix, right? I get Amazon Prime. Like a streaming show, I feel is like a little bit different. It just seems to be like there's a little bit of a different atmosphere with that. But otherwise, like I see no reason. I mean, the numbers that like I try and explain this to people whenever they're like, like why, how can like Mr. Beast afford to do the things he does, right? Where's the money coming from? And I like have to remind them like, do you know how many people watched the Super Bowl? Like, I think last year was like a smidge under 100 million people tuned into the Super Bowl. And those ads, those are worth millions of dollars for 100 million people. Like Mr. Beast, he can do 100 million views in like 2 or 3 videos, right? That's not out of the question. Like he's done that. So it's like a couple of weeks of Mr. Beast is equivalent to like a Super Bowl worth of eyeballs. Like that is why he can buy people like houses and stuff. And like that people don't really understand that, or at least like people who don't really who aren't like on the internet for their jobs when they're trying to wrap their head around where all this money is coming from. It's like, dude, Mr. Beast is like the Super Bowl. Like that is valuable. So it's like, why would anyone in that position, like why would they do a TV show? Like it's not even going to be able to pay them that well at that point compared to being the Super Bowl.
Yeah. When you put it that way, Mr. Beast is like a Super Bowl every day.
Yeah.
Basically.
If you look at his channel holistically and not like individual,
overall.
Yeah, I bet it's like, I mean, it's ridiculous, but like, that's why he can make a Mr. Beast video and I cannot make a Mr. Beast video.
Yeah. All right. Well, Matt, do we have questions for Alan before we let him go?
No, because I've been over this. Like when you disconnected, like when somebody is sufficiently boring, it just dries up. It's tumbleweed.
I guess we're done.
The patrons.
I get that.
Not only do we have no questions, but all the patrons who have listened have asked for refunds. It's that bad.
Oh my gosh, it's terrible.
Yes. Oh, well, look, a few just popped in, so I guess we roll with them. This one is from Dan, producer Dan. We'll start with him. Where would you find yourself on the adoption curve of something like Neuralink or similar?
Not an early adapter for sure. Definitely. Okay. If I was super old, like if I was on my deathbed, yeah, sign me up for whatever. If I feel like I still have like a solid 10 years to go, I'd wait 10 years.
I think that's a fair outlook.
Yeah,
on it.
I think that's the sort of thing where, like, I think if it works, that's fantastic. If it doesn't work, that's probably one of like the worst failure modes for a human that you can think of. So I would really want to wait like as long as I possibly could. Is my thinking right here. I mean, who knows? Like, it's maybe like once it becomes like a real, like this is just all hearsay, right? But once it becomes realistic, maybe I change my mind. I'm like, no, you know what? Plug it into me right now. But where I'm sitting right now, I think I'd want to wait as long as possible.
We have another question that really extends this kind of thing. It's from another Dan, and that's I want to point something out, by the way. Last week, so what I want is a Thunderdome style fight to the death between last week's Allen and this week's Allen.
Who is
I want this Allen death match. If we're going to book two Allens butting up against each other like that, we need to find the supreme
Who was
Allen.
the Allen last week?
Captain Disillusion is an Allen.
Okay. Well, I mean,
Yeah.
I think
Could you take him in a fight?
In real life, yes. If it was all in post-production, absolutely not. He would fucking destroy me. But if it was like actually like building like a gun or something, I think I could take him.
Well, if it's building weapons, then yes, the advantage is to the guy who has a channel where he builds weapons.
Yeah, but if it was like a fight where it was like, you know, who can make the coolest looking like special effect anime attack, then I would be toast. I'd be absolutely creamed.
Yeah.
Well, I do want Thunderdome rules where two Allens enter.
I think
one
I'd have a
Allen
good
leaves.
chance then.
Yeah.
I think
That's
I'd have
what's
a
important,
solid chance against the other Allen.
Well, Dan the Latch's question does build off that, you know, kind of futuristic Neuralinkish stuff, and the eventuality that, that Elon Musk makes good on his promise. How will the creation of genetically engineered cat girls redefine what humanity is?
It's all over.
And will they deserve human rights? And how furry is too furry for you to settle down with one? I've just edited the question from a word to settle down.
Once there's real life cat girls, that will become the supreme species on the planet. It will be over for us Homo sapiens, and the Neco sapiens will be like, we will be cattle to them. They will farm us, and we will worship them, and we will not understand anything that they're saying to us, but we will love every second of it, and it'll be over.
What will they do with us if they're farming us? What are they farming us for?
I couldn't even does a cow know what we farm them for? I couldn't even comprehend. I wouldn't know.
Well, yeah, but I mean, are we going to be, do you think we're going to be pets or are we going to be food?
Both. I think both. I think it's you know, it's just going to be absolute domination in every possible way by the Neco sapiens once that, if that happens.
You know, I have read, Matt, and you should be aware of this, although you probably already do know this, that conventional wisdom suggests that if our domesticated, quote unquote, house cats were large enough to kill us, they absolutely would. Like that, the only thing keeping them from attacking us is that they know how much bigger we are.
That.
And that's it. That's the line between us and Fluffy slashing our throats open.
Yeah, I can't imagine it'd be much different for a cat girl. It would be over.
Exactly. That's where I was going with that.
I mean, what the Egyptians like essentially did like a like a beta of this, right? Worshipping cats as they are. Can you imagine if Egyptians had cat girls? They'd be done.
I'm surprised they didn't. I mean, doesn't that, it seems like, you know, they would make, you know, combine some of the gods and goddesses.
Well, I think that's again sort of the like
harder than they did,
building on previous ideas, right? Like you can't like you can't really have like linear algebra unless you've done like certain math up to that point, right? Like you can't. It's very difficult to have like even the current mathematical system we have without even having something like the number 0 as a concept, or of having like of having sort of a base 10 digit system like we do instead of like Roman numerals, right? And in that same way, like I don't think Egyptians had gotten to the point yet of having cat girls. They were still, you know, they still had a few advancements left to go culturally, and they just did not make it.
It's such a thoughtful way of thinking through why Egyptians don't have like hieroglyphics.
It only seems like an obvious step to us because we've made the step, and to them it would have been the difference between like having the number 0 and not.
What if the Sphinx is a cat girl and we don't know
like
it?
the under the headdress, you lift it up and like 2 ears come out. I mean, has anyone ever done like a large scale X-ray of the Sphinx's head? It may very well be the case. That could be the last secret of the Sphinx.
Oh God!
It all makes sense now. All of it does.
It's all anime. It's always been anime.
This is from Base Weight. You're forced to create a weapon of mass destruction, forced by the government to create one of these. You have to do it or the consequences somehow will be much worse. Friends and family expiring. What do you make? What is your weapon of mass destruction?
So, okay, as weird or bad as this sounds, like this kind of thing comes up quite a bit for any of the builder YouTubers, like this kind of idea of like
how would you destroy the world?
because it's this thing, this kind of this sort of blessing that anyone who is, so far at least, who's sort of smart enough or creative enough to be capable of building a weapon that could kill a bunch of people, usually also it also means that they are not going to do that, right? If you're if you have the brain wrinkles, the capacity to come up with something really bad, you typically also have the wrinkles enough to care about not killing people. And it just so happens that it's other than a few, I mean, historically, other than a few genius bombers, right? That usually is the case of if you're smart enough to come up with this, or I guess the dudes who came up with the atom bomb. But again, that's sort of a government forcing situation, right? That usually, but it's the problem that the thing that we talk about sometimes, William Osman or Peter Schreipel or any of the dudes, any of the science boys who build stuff. It's well, just theoretically, if you did have to kill a bunch of people, how would you do it? And I think one of the, I'm not going to say who came up with this idea, but I think one of the most creative ones that I heard was this idea of not killing people necessarily, but just sort of causing mass destruction in a sense, is just like a drone that just has a powerful laser on it, and that it just flies around and blinds people.
Oh my
gosh!
Gosh!
If you that is so, in terms of harm versus effort, that's got one of the best ratios that I can think of, because it is so. Yeah,
that is efficient. That's very efficient.
It's very easy to get a laser that will blind you instantly. Once you get past even a few watts, I think, you get to the point where you will instantly blind someone if the laser hits their eye. The blink reflex will not save them. The amount of time it takes to fry their retina will not save them. The thermal mass of their eye will not save them. It will instantly, you don't see anymore forever. And so it's also relatively simple to do not just face tracking, but eye tracking. It's pretty straightforward to even get a low power embedded computer like a Raspberry Pi to be able to pretty quickly just track an eyeball. I think that was Michael's first video, actually, was a robot that shone a laser into his eye. It wasn't, a blinding laser, but it was specifically this crappy little, I think he made it out of a pizza box or something. But it's it's not that hard. And so once you have something like that, and you have a gimbal that tracks eyeballs and a blinding laser on it, and you make it mobile, on say a quadcopter, or really anything at that point that can just zip in and out of public spaces. You have a machine that can fly into a football stadium and just blind everyone in there before they even realize what's going on. I know, I mean, they're not dead, right? But still, you've just created a massive problem for a lot of people in a very short period of time.
Yeah.
And if you were to time that, if you were using that to disrupt something, to coincide it with I don't know, a political coup, or some other massacre, or just to time it with something just to create a maximum amount of chaos per dollar per effort. That's not a bad way to go about it. If you're looking for a weird, overly engineered way of doing that.
Okay. Legal.
This is even
hold on, stop.
better an example.
Legal disclaimer. The Create Unknown takes no responsibility if anybody steals Allen Pan's idea.
I did not say it was my idea. I said it came up in conversation.
We do not do this ever. We do not endorse this. Please
please do not make a robot that instantly blinds a lot of people at once.
Do not do that. We are telling everyone to not do this. This is
why I led. This is how dangerous these minds truly are. I literally warned everybody at the beginning of this episode, and here we are.
Yeah, that's don't try anything here at home. We're what you call experts.
Well, this one is back. We're going to swing back to legal things, at least morally decent things. Trevor asks, given all the various historical advances that we've had in engineering, and this is across many different eras, there have been so many, which one would you say is your favorite? Is there a particular invention or advance that you really connect with?
This is going to be a weird one because it just kind of like, this is just immediately what comes out. If I put any more thought into this, I think I would come up with something different, but my gut reaction is gunpowder. Like just working with like mechanisms that are powder actuated, right? Not necessarily just firearms, but like, things where you're propelling an object with powder, or like you're a good example of something that's powder actuated is like almost everything that has to like come apart on like the Mars lander that's like powder actuated, like the sky crane maneuver, like those cables that lower the rover down to the surface. Once that's done, those cables are cut with powder actuation, I'm pretty sure, and then the crane just yeets out of there. But like the reason that they do it that way is because like that is like in terms of power to weight to volume ratio, in terms of reliability, like black powder, gunpowder is just like freaking incredible. Yeah. Like there's nothing else that you will ever get the same energy density out of for a small space, for a light space.
Yeah. That is absolutely true. And like for people who are less familiar with firearms, the way powder is measured in a bullet is by grains. So you can imagine how little powder it takes. And bullets cartridges aren't very big. They don't have a lot of powder in them, yet they obviously shoot a relatively heavy bullet at an extremely powerful deadly force, and you're looking at anywhere from 1,000, 1,200 feet per second into the thousands when you're talking the high-powered stuff. But to get that out of literally like 80 grains of something is that weighs virtually nothing is what Alan's talking about.
I mean, it's unfortunate in some ways because a firearm, a gun is a tool, but it is a tool that is like designed for the express purpose of killing things. But like that is like just engineering wise, just like strictly clinical, looking at even like an early revolver. It's like freaking miraculous that like monkeys came up with this, right? That you could have something that is just so just energetically dense and so sort of like, I mean, perfectly tuned to do what it does, which is just freaking randomize an object by sending a lot of kinetic energy into it is probably the nicest way of saying that. To drastically increase the entropy of a target at a distance conveyed through kinetic energy. And that's like, I cannot, you can't, there's nothing that beats that. If you could, like, the problem is the energy release is so fast. If you could find a way to somehow like power a car with gunpowder, it would be like, if you could somehow like have a car run off of gunpowder instead of gasoline, you would get so many miles to like the gram of black powder. It would be nuts. But again, it's like it's a problem of like release time. There's no way to slowly release the chemical energy of black powder. It just goes off.
Right.
Exactly.
You can't
exactly.
control it.
But it's still
no. That's the
it is
interesting
incredible.
part. Yeah.
If I ever make Spider-Man web shooters, which I honestly would like to try and do later this year, like to make it anything the size of like the Marvel, like Peter Parker web shooters, like this tiny little thing on his wrist, like the only way that you could do that is if it was powder actuated. Like there's nothing, pneumatics is what everyone goes with, and you need like a tank, you need a solenoid valve. It's just you cannot do that with anything other than black powder. So it's gonna be weird because it's gonna sound like every time I do this, every time I make the Spider-Man hand gesture, it's gonna be like bang, bang, bang. But there's no other way to do it.
That sounds pretty cool, though.
Have you made your own? Have you put your own powder together?
When I was.
Because that seems like a very
when I
Allen
was
Pan
much
thing
younger, I won't say how young. I don't know if that's like a bad thing or not. But when I was much younger, I did make my own black powder, not for like projectile reasons. It was actually for art stuff. You can do there's a really cool technique of creating gunpowder art where you can essentially take like a slower burning black powder and you can essentially make like stencils, and you can like pour black powder over them and you can light it up, and those stencils will protect the canvas underneath, and everything around it will get kind of burned and singed, and you can end up making like very, very cool looking, like smoky burned looking wall art basically. And so that was why I made a bunch of black powder when I was younger, and it's relatively straightforward. This is not like anywhere near the quality of stuff that is going to be used in any modern firearm, right? But all it really takes to make a black powder is charcoal, some sulfur, and some kind of like an oxidizing agent. I think potassium nitrate is like what's used in stump remover. Sodium nitrate, I think, is what's like classically used in gunpowder. But theoretically, as long as you got like a fuel and an oxidizer, it should work out. And it's like just getting those in the right proportion. And then the dangerous part is mixing them together to make it into a fine grain, because I was using a rock tumbler at the time. So you just kind of put it in this rock tumbler with like some ball bearings, and you like maybe spray it with a little bit of water, and you hope for the best. But like that's it's like, it's if you've got proper supervision, it's not a bad project for like a very mature and responsible high schooler, like an 18-year-old. I shouldn't even be putting numbers to
with
this.
with a mentor. No, you shouldn't. No, because now it's all of a sudden a liability with specific
maybe don't make black powder if you're listening to this. I don't even know what the
art stuff
legal.
Check that out, because it is really cool. Like, you really should Google and do you know, Alan, do you remember the term for
I think if you just
art?
Google gunpowder art, there's one particular, I think he's a Chinese artist who does the most of that, but I think it just generally, if you look up gunpowder art or maybe black powder art, like I think you'll be able to find the proper rabbit hole in Google Images for that.
Yeah. Very cool stuff, though. You want to take a look and be able to put it to all the things that Alan is saying. So we're going to shift gears. We're going to pound out these last few. We're going to machine gun.
Sure,
here.
yeah.
This is from Isaac. What's it like sharing a house with other creators in the same content area?
So let's see. There was a short period of time where I think there was technically a living situation with me, William Osman, and Jabril. It's rough because it was like right before the pandemic hit, and we ended up, having to sort of like separate. But I mean, it's okay. Here's a good example. So, like recently, to sort of like once we were vaccinated, almost as like a celebration, we all went to visit Backyard Scientist in Florida, Kevin Kohler. And so we had an Airbnb, and it was me, William Osman, Peter Schriepel, and Kevin. And I was there for just about 2 weeks, and then Will and Peter stuck around for like another week or two, and they banged out some videos with Kevin. And it's just like, it's like it's energizing and it's also exhausting, at least for me. I don't know how else to put that. Like for me, like I do really enjoy having like personal space and time to like think about like how a video is going to go, like how a video is going to get edited, like writing an outline, that sort of stuff. I really do like enjoy being by myself. And so like I basically had to like come back to Los Angeles to like finish that video, which got taken down because it was like a gun thing. So we don't talk about that video, but like the energy involved in that kind of like group dynamic where it's like sort of everyone's pretty much on the same page and everyone sort of like knows like what like with, if you're filming with someone who doesn't have that sort of background, even another like content creator, sometimes like it there's, you know, a bit of a barrier when you have to like, you know, sort of explain like what's going on, what you're doing, what your plan is. And with these science boys, it's kind of like you can basically, you know, say very, very little and kind of everyone in the room like sort of immediately knows what you're going for. Where you can say something like 20,000 volt capacitor bank. And it's like kind of everyone at once generally has a plan in mind and an idea of how that would go down, of what would have to happen for that to go correctly, of like the safety, of the risks, like all of that sort of like everyone just by saying that, everyone at the same time sort of has like an idea of what's happening. Whereas like, you know, if it was someone who was like doing a collaboration who didn't have that background, you know, there's a lot of explaining that has to happen, especially for safety, especially for precautions, especially for like even what is happening. And so like that sort of like mind meld is like freaking incredible for if you're just trying to like make stuff on video.
Oh, that's a cool dynamic. And yeah, I can see the difference between, well, it's really a language issue, isn't it? Where you have this body of knowledge and the language to talk about it. And so does everybody else who's in that environment versus, you know, you're talking to us in a certain way, but we don't have that same knowledge and we don't have the language around it to communicate like they do. So no, I can see that being completely different.
It's like a hive mind almost.
You mentioned
like a crazy. It's like a hive mind on some kind of amphetamines.
Oh, amphetamines. Oh, good. Yeah, no, we didn't talk about enough bannable things in this episode. So now I can give it a context.
I worked as a lab rat when I was younger, and so I once got paid to take amphetamines in a hospital and to watch Planet Earth for like 7 hours while I was on amphetamines. It was really weird.
What?
Yeah.
What is this story?
I don't know. I've had a weird life, but like one of the things you can do if you're poor is you can just have like medical tests done to you for money.
Oh yeah.
And so
they're always in
I did that.
Yeah.
I
went to school in Boston, and so there were a lot of research universities between Boston U and Harvard and Northeastern and Suffolk and UMass, and like there are a lot of places doing research, right? And there were always ads around that's like, get $6,000 to do a 45-day.
I think I got like
study.
an $80 gift card to Target for that one. It wasn't even like real money. It was like. Yeah.
But you didn't have to pay for the amphetamine, did you?
And so that was very interesting. That was a very, very interesting experience.
What was the conclusion of the study?
So
yes, he watched all 7 hours of
well,
the
first
nature
of
show.
all, you cannot watch Planet Earth when you're on amphetamines. It doesn't work. You just cannot like just like the like it's just like the light hits your eyes, but it doesn't make it past. Like you just can't comprehend. Let's choose like. You end up on like a different timeline. It's like if the Flash tried to watch Planet Earth, right? It's just he's talking too slow. I think it was an addiction study, and like throughout the day, they would give me surveys of like how I was feeling, and it's like, you know, it was I'm not sure how you would describe it. It was a fake double-blind study, right? It was set up like a double-blind where they said that they were going to give me one of like a variety of drugs. Like it could be a sedative, it could be a stimulant, it could be this, it could be that. But then at the end, when they did the sort of patient disclosure, they're like, oh no, we lied. It was amphetamines the entire time. Everyone always gets amphetamines. So they would ask questions like, you know, based off your experience so far, it was like, hourly. Based off your experience so far, like, would you be willing to pay to have more of whatever we gave you? How much would you be willing to pay to have more of what we just gave you? And it felt like the only way I figured out how to describe it is it felt like my entire emotional capacity as a human being, like every sort of like the capability, the range and spectrum of what I was capable of feeling and experiencing as a person was reduced to the word go. It's like, go, 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 go. Like that was the only thing I was capable of interpreting for that period of time. And unfortunately, they left me with my phone. That was a really odd choice. So I ended up sending some really, really crazy text messages to people.
Oh my God.
What did you do the next day? Just be like, sorry, I was on crank, but it was totally
it was
legit,
first,
bro. I promise.
think I was up front on the phone. I was like, I think they gave me a stimulant.
Stimulant.
Well, they didn't say.
God, I feel like you have so much energy naturally. You on a stimulant? You must have been chewing on the drywall.
You had to stay in bed. Like they put you in a hospital bed and they just gave you a laptop and they put on Planet Earth and they were like, just watch this.
I mean, that's how we can get you to build that Gundam.
Oh yeah, just give
Pan some more crank.
No, what would happen is I would end up just like, it would be garbage. It would be like the thing where it's like you think you're getting a lot done, but at the end of the day, you like take a step back and it's just like a bunch of like pieces of balsa wood hot glued together. You're like, oh wait, what have I been doing all day? It's just like tin cans and just like baling wire and zip ties. Like, oh wait.
So speaking of hot glued balsa wood and tin cans, Andre APM wants to know what your favorite project has been to date. Like, is there one that's really exceeded your expectations?
That's a tricky one. I feel like my go-to answer for this kind of a question was usually I made a sword out of ice once, and it was just one of those things where it was like so almost like stupid simple. Like it was a sword that I made out of picrete, which is a composite material that's made of ice and like a wood fiber. So in this case, I think it was literally like water and toilet paper, I think was what I used, or like water and paper towels. And like I made a mold out of cardboard that was like roughly shaped like a big cartoon sword, and I filled it with water and with toilet paper at the right weight ratio as classical picrete, which is usually made with sawdust and water. And I froze it outside in Illinois in the winter and took it out of the mold, and it worked. It was a sword that was like, it had a really bad edge. Like it was essentially like a 45-degree bevel. Like it wasn't even like an edge properly, but it could like kind of smash a watermelon in half. And it was one of those things where it just like,
sure.
Like it just worked, and it was just simple, and it was exactly what I wanted. Like I had envisioned this thing, and it basically was just like, it's that hardly ever happens. Like going from A to B, usually a project that I'm working on, like it starts in a completely different space that it ends in. By the time you've like sort of made it to the end, you've had to make like so many realizations and concessions, and it's an entirely different thing. And the ice sword was just a sword made of ice from beginning to end. Although recently, I talked about that video. I made a video recently that just bombed, did pretty badly in terms of like what I was hoping for views. But that was something I made, like an Iron Man repulsor, and there's not really a good way at all of making a real life repulsor like from the Marvel movies. But I had this idea for literally like, I think a decade. I think like just like almost 8 years or something like that. Like I think I had this idea coming out of college where I wanted to be able to have like a repulsor on my hand that could shoot a vortex ring out the front. Because what that means is a vortex ring is sort of this stable donut-shaped, like spinning, inward spinning thing of air. This is kind of hard to, like a toroid. It's kind of hard to describe, but like it can travel quite a distance. It's self-sustaining, so it's like it goes farther than just a puff of turbulent air could go, right? Like if you're like trying to like blow air out your mouth, there's only so far that it'll go. Like you can only blow out a candle from however many feet away. But with like a vortex ring with the equivalent amount of air or power, however you want to measure it, you could blow out a candle from like, 10, 20 feet away. So like I wanted to do this thing where it was like a combustion powered palm mounted vortex ring shooter. And finally I decided to try it, and physics was not on my side, but I managed to figure it out. And like, even though the video is not doing well, like the fact that like I was able to take this idea that I had and like prove to myself that the idea like worked and that I made it work in real life. I mean, it wasn't, it wasn't great. I ended up being able to like knock over like styrofoam cups from like 5 feet away. Not exactly a Tony Stark repulsor, but it was like a start. I almost feel like I do want to revisit that sometime and see if I can improve it a little bit more. But I think those are the two that come to mind in terms of like my favorite, like personally, my favorite projects. Ice Sword and Iron Man Repulsor.
That's awesome. And you mentioned Ice Sword as the first one. This goes into Jeff's question. What's your favorite video game sword?
Favorite video game sword? So that's tricky because there's a lot of video game swords that I appreciate just from sort of like cultural osmosis that I have never actually played with in a game. So just generally, like I love a giant anime sword. I love any kind of ridiculous big anime sword. And so like the Buster Sword from Final Fantasy, right? It's like the classic, like the prototypical, like most well-known giant anime sword. I have never played a single game of Final Fantasy. I have not played any of them. But I know the Buster Sword, and I commissioned a metal worker that I know to like make me a real Buster Sword, and I ended up trying to build like an exoskeleton, an exosuit, so I'd be able to actually like wield it in a sort of like realistic manner, and not just kind of like hoisting it up and letting it drop. I was like mildly successful. It turned out we found this like bodybuilder who was able to like pick it up like nothing, and he had a much easier time of it than I did with my freaking exosuit. So that was one of those projects where I was like, oh geez, like just getting muscular was a better solution. But making an exosuit was the faster solution because I didn't have to work out for like 5 years. So like that's classic. I love me a giant anime sword. I love also like just like energy swords, like a lightsaber is pretty classic. In Gundam Wing, they had very similar swords, like these, just like a plasma sword, right? And that's also like very tricky. I've made a couple. I think I tried to make a lightsaber that was like sort of fire based. I tried to make a plasma blade that was electrically based. It was like an honest to goodness plasma, but it was a blown plasma. It's known as like a cold plasma. So it wasn't really the same. It would kill you. It was like 24,000 volts. You would die, but it wouldn't kill you in the way that it kills you in like, TV and movies. So I guess my favorite swords are like sort of like energy elemental swords, or if it's just freaking big. Like if it's got to be like a weird energy sword, or if it's not and it's just made out of metal, it better be like just a ridiculously oversized sword.
Yes, Sephiroth's sword from Final Fantasy VII.
Very long.
Would also be cool because it's so long. That's what I was gonna say. It's not as chunky as Cloud's Buster Sword, but it's way longer. It's
I love the chunkiness.
Long. That would be cool.
I love the simplicity of like it's like a rectangle with like a point at the end. I love that.
Yeah, it's almost like a blunt object.
Yeah. And I mean, if anything, it also meant it was really easy to like commission. It was really easy to like basically I bought like just a blank slab of cold rolled steel, and it was like a cutoff. So I think it was essentially like a scrap from a metal yard, and I brought it to my friend Rob, and I was basically like, just cut a 45-degree angle off the end and just weld a handle to that. That's your sword.
Yeah. It's awesome.
Oh my god. Yeah, I was just gonna let that chunkiness versus length debate.
Girth versus length.
as long.
I prefer girth for sure.
Yeah, just I wasn't sure where it was going to lead, but I wanted to give it a chance to go somewhere we'd all regret. But this this is the last question before I think Kevin's got one for you on the way out. But this one's meta. It's meta, but it's very, very real. It's from Monsieur Chinchilla. What question do you really want to be asked? And this is such a real question because if you go to events like VidCon, you go to places where you're going to see a bunch of people over a few days. Some of them are also YouTubers. A lot of them are people who like your work, and they're all asking you things and talking to you about things. What do you want people to ask?
Wow, I'm not sure if I've ever heard this question before, or if I've even ever really thought of it. I mean, first off, this one is really clearly good. This is one I'd want to be asked because I don't think this is kind of a new one, I think. But yeah, let's say like, next year, San Diego Comic-Con, we're safe again. We start up doing a panel. What do I want to hear?
Nice. Yep.
I think any question that is like well thought out and has any question that's easy to work with. If it's a question where it's like just a weird, like the answer is like a weird yes or no, and you like have to like elaborate on it to like make sure it's sort of like a good response, or like any question that is just so far outside of what the like topic was about. Like if it's just like entirely out. I mean, sometimes those can be good, but then other times it's kind of like, well, we're doing a panel about anime, science of anime. Why are you asking me about gardening tips? It's like, so I think the question that I would like to hear the most, though, probably would be like, I think I like questions where people ask me like how I think something would work if it was like some superpower or some machine, like whatever from whatever series. Like I think those questions, it just gives me a chance to sort of like flex my brain wrinkles, especially if it's like one that I haven't like really thought of before. Like say for example, like if someone like how would Spider-Man's web shooters work, right? Like I think that would be a fun question to answer because that's something where I could come up with a lot of different angles. There's like so many ways to answer that question, and it's just that's kind of like, I think for me, like a fun question. That's what I'm looking for, and that's like a fun question for me. Is like, how would Thor's hammer work in real life? And it's like, dude, you know what? Thor's hammer, I think it definitely has to be a reactionless drive. Like Asgard's in the future, they have reactionless drives. That's exactly what it is. So it doesn't weigh a lot. It just is always producing the exact counterforce of anything that isn't Thor, right? Like that's the sort of thing that I like to answer.
Well, Kevin, you've got a fun question, don't you?
Yeah, I'm going to allow
you a fun question that worthy of deep consideration.
Well, specifically to flex your brain wrinkles.
There's a few of them,
and then once
just a few of them.
Once you answer this, then we'll let you go. But we talked about cat boys, and I'd be remiss not to just get some sort of response to this question, and that is, Allen Pan, what is your fursona?
Komodo dragon.
Really? Wow, that was quick.
It just seems right. It's got very dirty, venomous mouth. It has long tail that can break legs.
Like you?
It is a dragon.
Breaking tail.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, if I think it doesn't count if it doesn't have fur, though. I truly am not like that versed in furry culture, but
this has come up before. So Kevin and I are learning some of these things along the way as people give responses with questions like that, and then our chat explains the real things to us. And so that is in the class. They're called scalies.
Oh,
that
I hate
subset
that.
of
I
like
changed my mind.
reptilian,
I hate that.
non-furred.
Scalies?
Oh,
no,
you don't want to be a
I've changed
scaly.
my mind.
I would
want to be, in that case, to stay within the furry category. Have you ever seen, there's like pictures of like very, very fuzzy moths. like the particular species of moths that are extremely fuzzy. They almost look like they've got like a full, like a coat of like cat fur. I would want to do that. I'd be a big furry moth. And so then I wouldn't be called a scaly.
That seems really unique. We need to get our chat answering whether or not there are moth furries. Is that a new thing? Did Alan just invent a new class of furry? Quickly respond.
I mean, I wish
chat.
I had specific species in mind, because I have an image that I've seen before, probably on like Reddit or something, but I don't have anything other than like very, very furry moth. I don't know if you get a proper image if you Google that, but there are very furry moths out there.
There are a lot. There are like a zillion species of moth.
What are the white ones? They look like the most like a cat, I guess, but in moth. I don't know. They're just cool.
I've seen a pink one that looks really cool.
Dress up in a big pink furry moth suit. Start humping people.
So
now we actually have some photos of like drawn moth personas that other people have done.
Good.
So there are possibilities here.
There you go.
No. You have a full community already. They've been waiting for you.
Yes. Welcoming you with big furry wings.
There we go. That's what I like to hear.
That's it. We have to end on that. Alan, thank you so much for joining us. This has been illuminating and fuzzy all around.
Thank you for having me.
You're great. You're great to talk to. Everybody check out Alan's YouTube channel. It's absolutely phenomenal. If you want to join us, we're here every Wednesday night. If you want to support the show, just go to patreon.com/thecreateunknown and become part of the TC universe. Until next time, we will see you, Space Cowboys.
Thanks for listening to The Create Unknown. We'd like to extend a huge thank you and congratulations to the Tots and Dumpster crew who save tiny little lives every single month. A tremendous shout out to our elite baby gang commanders: Trevsdead, Boromir, Botdogs, Chinchilla, Isaac, Conrad, James, Andrew, Jeff Davis, Patrick Pister, Baseweight, Monahim, Dojangles, and Zero. And thank you to our grizzled, battle-hardened child infantry: Jen Mafasanti, Kevin Menard, Mikhail Steinke, Risebread, Sean Malone, Triple Question Mark, Ryan, Kamikaze, Maria, Marco, Sheep, Tom Bidiogre, Jelksies, and Dan the Latch. Thank you as well to our indentured servants, producer Dan Yosua and producer-editor Ben Webster. Thanks to Baseweight for the use of Created in the Unknown that we use for an opening theme. The Create Unknown is an Unknown Media production in partnership with Studio 71.